Welcome to CINEPRO, where we bring your favorite movies back to life with quick recaps, hidden details, and everything you missed. The movie starts in a large gym in Florida, United States. Nora is getting ready for another swimming training session. However, despite all her effort, she can't finish the race in first place. Devastated by not improving as much as she'd like, the swimmer returns to the locker room, and when she opens her locker, she notices she's received several calls from Betty, her older sister. Worried, Betty asks why Nora is still at the gym, since a major hurricane is approaching Florida, and the news reports say the region will be hit hard. In addition, Betty reveals she tried to contact their father, but he didn't answer a single call, and Nora says she'll go check on him. Despite the heavy rain and strong winds, the swimmer drives through the city without any concern, and during the trip she sends a message to her father on her cell phone. Minutes later, Nora reaches a large intersection on the road, where an accident seems to have happened, causing a terrible traffic jam. As she approaches the scene, she runs into her friend Wayne and asks about the severity of the situation, saying she needs to find her father as soon as possible. Wayne explains that the storm ended up turning toward the city, and, due to the sudden evacuation, one of the drivers caused an accident, blocking the roads. Therefore, Wayne says he can't allow Nora to cross the road, and despite her insistence, she can't convince her friend. Before leaving, she asks Wayne to check on her father as soon as possible, since she hasn't heard from him in hours. Nora then starts to walk away, but when she looks at her father's photo on her cell phone, she changes her mind and starts to go around the roadblocks by taking side roads. Thanks to this, she manages to access the closed-off road and continues driving while listening to evacuation alerts on the radio. Even so, Nora ignores the safety orders and crosses all the roadblocks, allowing her to reach her father's house, where she finds the door key hidden in the mailbox. Upon entering, she finds Cookie, Dave's pet, and realizes her father isn't home. Nora then contacts her sister and says she'll look for him in the area before the hurricane hits the city completely. So, she drives off in search of Dave with Cookie by her side, and during the trip she passes a gas station, where she notices the water level is rising more and more. Believing her father may have gone to the family's old house, which was put up for sale a few months ago, Nora heads there and finds her father's pickup truck parked right in front of the house. Inside, she calls for Dave several times, and when she tries to call him again, she discovers he left his cell phone in the kitchen. Also, Nora notices that Dave was trying to fix a leak in the sink. At that moment, she hears Cookie barking from the other side of the house, and shortly after, she's startled by a tree falling toward one of the kitchen windows. Realizing the situation is getting more and more critical, she walks over to her father's dog, and upon reaching the garage, she notices the little dog is looking toward the basement. She then decides to go down the stairs to look for Dave, using her flashlight to light up the area. After a few minutes of searching, she finds a radio left on the floor along with a toolbox, and concludes that her father was listening to music while making some repair. Desperate, Nora runs through the abandoned basement, looking for Dave, and at that moment, she finds her father unconscious and seriously injured. Aiming to get him to the nearest hospital as quickly as possible, she tries to drag him to the exit, using a tarp to make it easier. At the same time, the radio issues a maximum emergency alert, saying the hurricane will intensify even more in the next few minutes, and everyone must leave the area immediately. Nora then reaches the stairs, but before she can climb them, she's surprised by a gigantic hungry alligator that starts chasing her. Panicked, she drags her father so they won't be devoured by the predator, which roars as it gets closer and closer to them. To escape the animal, Nora goes through the pipes, allowing the pair to escape the attack. Outside, the storm gets worse by the second, and while trying to find a way to escape the basement, she notices her father finally wakes up. Realizing he's very weak, Nora uses her jacket to collect some rainwater, so he won't get dehydrated. Dazed, Dave asks what his daughter is doing there, and she says she wanted to make sure he was okay, since he hadn't been in touch for a while. She tries to understand why her father was alone in the basement, and he says he was trying to fix the broken windows when he was surprised by the giant alligator. During the conversation, Dave begins to feel intense pain, and Nora realizes that he has a severe leg injury compromising his mobility. At that moment, the woman notices she is receiving a call from her sister, and decides to get closer to pick up the phone so she can call for help. Dave then explains that the alligator can see easily in the dark, and asks his daughter to return as quickly as possible, since they are protected by the pipes there. After getting ready, Nora begins her attempt to retrieve the cell phone, and asks her father to try to talk to her in the meantime, trying to keep him conscious for longer. Upon hearing this, the man asks about his daughter's performance in her recent swimming competitions, but the woman says she hasn't been doing well, and admits she's afraid of losing her scholarship if things continue this way. Trying to comfort her, Dave responds that this defeat means nothing, and that Nora is still a great swimmer, since she has a lot of talent in this sport. However, the woman says she doesn't want to talk about it anymore, and seeing the phone on the floor, she runs to retrieve it. Quickly, Nora calls the authorities while watching the creature, but at that moment she is surprised by another alligator, which appears right behind her. Panicking, the woman tries to cross the pipes, but the animal is faster, and grabs her leg, dragging her away. Seeing his daughter being captured by the predators, Dave panics, and starts screaming to try to draw their attention. Despite the intense pain she is feeling, Nora manages to kick the alligator several times, allowing her to break free and run away. Soon after, the woman ends up surrounded by the predators, and after using some metal cages to disorient one of them, she escapes to the other side, where she encounters the other one right in front of her. Terrified, Nora tries to use an area full of loose wires to slow down the animal, and during the chase, the creature steps on the cell phone, completely destroying the device. Even with all those escape attempts, the woman continues to be pursued by the predator, and to defend herself, she uses a screwdriver to stab the animal in the eye, buying a little more time. Nora then notices an opening in the wall right next to her, and uses the passage to hide from the animal. Worried about his daughter's safety, Dave shouts for her to tell him what is happening, and after recovering, the woman responds that the basement has been surrounded by two huge alligators. Now that she is in a safe zone, Nora assesses her injury, and starts to get scared when she realizes how serious her situation is. Meanwhile, Dave struggles to sit up again, and after turning on his flashlight, he finds a shovel lying on the ground. To control the bleeding in her leg, Nora uses a torn piece of her pants to create a tourniquet, so she won't lose her strength so quickly. Some time later, the storm intensifies, and the entire neighborhood ends up flooded by the rain, allowing the region's alligators to swim through the streets in search of new prey. Using the metal shovel, Dave drags himself to the edge of the area protected by the pipes, and says that the predators are still circling the place, as he can hear their footsteps in the distance. Realizing they could be eaten if they stay there, Nora decides to leave her hiding spot and carefully walks to one of the windows, so she can shout for help. While waiting, Dave makes an improvised splint around his leg, and using his knife, he manages to put it back in place, causing immense pain. As she approaches the window, the woman sees a group of hooded people robbing a convenience store, trying to take one of the ATMs onto their boat. At that moment, one of the group members sees the light from Nora's flashlight, and starts to approach to see what's going on. Taking advantage of the distraction of its prey, one of the alligators attacks the woman on the boat, and begins to viciously attack her, causing her to go into complete despair. As soon as he notices the presence of the predators, the man tries to save his friend, but before he can get close, he is grabbed by one of the alligators, and pulled underwater. Inside the convenience store, the last member of the group continues stealing various items, and at that moment, the other man manages to free himself from the alligator, and the boy sees his companion approaching in complete despair. Before he can warn the young man about the creature's presence, the criminal is pulled underwater once again, and his body is destroyed by one of the animals. Shocked by what he has just witnessed, the boy tries to move away from the windows, but it is no use, and he is captured by one of the predators, who eliminates him in seconds. Realizing they have no chance of escaping alive, Nora begins to panic, and Dave tries to calm her down, saying they can find another way to reach the upper floor. The man then points to the direction of the entire pipe structure, and very cautiously, the woman walks to the spot, where she finds a passage to the first floor. After dealing with a group of spiders that fell onto her face, Nora tries to push the piece of furniture that is on top of the hatch, calling for Cookie's attention as he approaches to understand what is happening. However, despite trying several times, the woman is unable to lift the object, and Dave asks her to return to the safe zone in the pipes, because they need to think of a way to escape before the place is flooded with water. Sometime later, the pair hear a boat approaching the house, and looking through one of the holes in the wall, Nora sees Wayne, who is searching for survivors. Desperate, father and daughter shout to be heard by the officers, and the man asks his teammate to stay on the boat while he goes to rescue the pair. Upon entering the house, Wayne encounters Cookie barking non-stop, and begins to walk through the house to understand what is happening. In order to warn her friend about the predators, Nora decides to cross the basement again, using her flashlight to observe every movement of the creature. After a few seconds of searching, Wayne reaches the garage, where he finds the entrance to the underground area, which is almost completely flooded. Shortly after, Finney sees the chains of a swing being pulled by something, and believing that a survivor might be trapped in the structure, he approaches to investigate. As soon as she manages to communicate with Wayne, Nora warns him about the presence of the alligators, and the man tries to contact his teammate to assist him in the rescue. However, before he can respond, Finn notices that one of the predators is trapped in the chains, and when he realizes the monster has freed itself, he tries to escape desperately. At the same time, Wayne is surprised by one of the alligators, which pulls him into the basement, where his body is torn apart by the other predator. Before he can reach the house, Finn is also captured by the animals, who join forces to devour him in the middle of the street, killing the policeman in a matter of seconds. Panicked, Nora swims toward Wayne and tries to rescue him at any cost, but without success, and the man is completely swallowed. Soon after, the woman notices that one of the alligators is right behind her and tries to return to the safe zone, being pulled in by her father at the last second. Now reunited, Dave begins to comfort his daughter, and after collecting themselves, they start talking about their past disagreements, allowing father and daughter to reconnect. In order to escape, the man asks Nora to try to swim to the basement stairs, while he tries to distract the alligators by hitting the pipes to irritate them. Before leaving, the woman promises to return for her father and swims to her position to start the escape plan. Without wasting time, Dave begins to hit the pipes with one of the bricks from the floor, causing the predators to approach him and allowing Nora to get closer and closer to the stair. Realizing the alligators are about to catch him, the man uses his metal shovel to knock down one of the support beams, which falls right above the animal, trapping it. Seizing his chance, David lands several blows on the predator with his brick, and while watching the exit, Nora notices that one of the alligators did not go after her father. Trying not to draw the animal's attention, the woman backs away cautiously, but ends up bumping into one of the metal cages, causing the alligator to come toward her. Quickly, Nora hides in one of the corners of the basement and remains still as the predator searches for her. After delivering several furious attacks to the alligator, Dave finally manages to kill the animal, and the woman tells him she will try to climb up the drainage grate, since the hatch is being watched by one of the creatures. Upon reaching the other side of the basement, Nora comes across a kind of nest created by the predators, who left the bodies of all their victims scattered around the place along with several eggs. Seeing the gun on the policeman's body, the woman tries to approach him without drawing attention, allowing her to grab the weapon. However, one of the alligators ends up biting Nora's arm, and she starts shooting into the monster's mouth, killing it in a few seconds. Desperate, Dave asks what is happening, and the young woman replies that she managed to get rid of one of the predators, so now they have a chance to leave. Despite the injuries to her arm, Nora manages to make her way through the drainage tunnel, reaching the outside, but in doing so, the swimmer realizes she has been spotted by one of the alligators. Trying not to be killed by the predator, the woman flees to dry land, where she sees several helicopters flying over the region. Since she cannot get the rescuers' attention, Nora runs to save her father, who is about to run out of oxygen due to the water level, which has already reached the basement ceiling. Quickly, the woman uses a chair to break down the back door, and upon entering, she finds Cookie trying to dig up the floor, where Dave is desperately pounding the wood. Due to lack of oxygen, the man begins to sink further and further, causing him to lose consciousness, and Nora then grabs a crowbar from her father's tools, using it to open a hole in the floor. Soon after, the young woman submerges part of her body to pull Dave out, and upon noticing that he is no longer breathing, she tries to perform chest compressions to revive him. Despite this, the man does not seem to show any signs of life, and in a moment of complete desperation, Nora delivers several punches to her father's chest, which finally brings him back to consciousness. Relieved, father and daughter hug, and after recovering Cookie, the duo head out. Now Dave explains that they need to reach the boat that is parked at the convenience store. Frightened, Nora says that this will not be possible, since the area is surrounded by alligators. However, the man explains that those predators only chase movement in the water, so they will just need to move cautiously. After walking a few meters through the flood, Dave notices that the rain seems to be letting up, and the woman reveals that they have just entered the eye of the hurricane. At the same time, the survivors are surprised by a large alligator, and although they are scared, they remain motionless, causing the animal not to notice their presence. Soon after, the emergency siren starts to sound, and since they cannot waste another second in that place, Dave shouts for his daughter to try to swim to the boat immediately. To encourage his daughter, Dave says that he knows very well that she is faster than those alligators, since she has always been a great predator. Nora then speeds toward the convenience store, and despite being chased by several creatures, she manages to reach the boat safely. Quickly, the young woman goes to rescue Dave and Cookie, but before they can escape, the survivors are surprised by a huge wave that destroys everything in its path. Trying to avoid being wiped out by the impact, the duo use the boat as a shield against the water, but even so, the wave hits them with full force, throwing them into one of the houses. Because of this, the duo ends up being separated by the current, which carries Cookie into one of the rooms of the house. Even though they try to fight against the force of the water, they are easily swept away, and after recovering, father and daughter try to communicate while looking for a way to escape that place. Dave then shouts for his daughter to meet him at the stairs, and realizing that the alligators may have already invaded the area, Nora tries to cross the rooms by climbing over the furniture. However, as soon as she tries to jump over a table, the structure breaks, causing the swimmer to fall into the water once again. Desperate, she reaches the stairs, where she holds onto the wall structures, and at that moment the woman finds a police radio, which seems to be receiving calls from the station. At the same time, Dave manages to find several flares, and decides to take them in case they need to attract the attention of helicopters. Using the boat that was overturned by the storm, Nora manages to recover the police radio. However, as soon as she explains her situation to the officers, the woman notices that the device has lost communication. Because of this, the swimmer does not know if her call for help was heard by the authorities. On the other side of the house, Dave comes across Cookie, swimming toward him. Excited to know that his pet is still alive, the man leaves him on the stairs to keep him safe, but at that moment he is surprised by one of the alligators. Terrified, Dave tries to fight for his life, but the predator fights fiercely, and bites off the man's arm. Soon after, Nora appears, and her father shouts for her to swim away as fast as she can. The woman then flees to one of the bathrooms in the house, and locks herself inside the shower stall, causing the predator to try to break down the door. To get rid of the creature, Nora allows it to enter the stall and performs a maneuver to lock it inside, allowing her to return to her father. Now that they are reunited, father and daughter go up to the attic stairs, and looking out the window they see that a helicopter is approaching. However, before they can attract the aircraft's attention with the flares, one of the alligators ends up destroying the window, causing the place to be flooded. At the same time, Nora is trapped in the room with the predator, which manages to bite her shoulder. Quickly, the woman uses the flare to attack the animal, allowing her to escape the attack and get outside. Soon after, Nora holds onto the gutters, so as not to be swept away by the current, which manages to drag the predator away. Despite suffering from his injuries, Dave refuses to lose his daughter, and uses his only remaining arm to pull her onto the roof, where they see a helicopter approaching in the distance. Excited, Nora lights her last flare to attract the aircraft's attention, which drops the rescue platform so that the family and their dog can be rescued after so many hours of suffering alongside Florida's greatest predator. If you liked today's video, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell to receive all new updates. See you in the next video.